The massive screens in Times Square flickered with excitement as humanity watched the Galactic Council's ships descend through Earth's atmosphere. Golden vessels that looked like falling stars painted the sky, their hulls gleaming in the summer sun. People held their breath, phones raised high to capture humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Among the crowd stood Captain James Miller, his military uniform crisp despite the humid New York air. His eyes narrowed as he studied the approaching ships. 20 years in the Space Force had taught him to look past the shine and search for substance. These aliens were putting on quite a show, but something felt off about the whole thing. The lead ship landed in the specially prepared area of Central Park, its golden surface dimming to a subtle glow. The crowd's cheers echoed across Manhattan as tall, elegant figures emerged from the vessel. The alien diplomats walked with perfect posture, their long robes flowing despite the lack of wind. "Quite the entrance," muttered Susan Thompson, who stood next to Miller. As Earth's leading spacecraft engineer, she had been chosen to evaluate whatever technology the Council might share with humanity. Her dark eyes sparkled with curiosity, but her mouth was set in a suspicious line. The alien delegation approached the waiting human leaders. Their spokesperson, a tall figure with silvery skin, spread 4 arms in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. "People of Earth," the alien's voice carried clearly through their translation device, "we welcome you to the galactic community." The ceremony proceeded exactly as planned. Speeches were made, promises of cooperation and friendship were exchanged, and then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the presentation of Earth's acceptance gift. As is tradition, the alien spokesperson announced, "We present you with a vessel of our making to help humanity take its first steps among the stars." The air shimmered, and suddenly it appeared, floating above Central Park like a ghost ship from an old tale. But as the shimmer faded, confused murmurs spread through the crowd. The ship looked old. Its hull was a patchwork of dull metal plates, some showing clear signs of wear. It was massive, yes, but it had none of the elegance of the Council's golden vessels. Miller watched as Thompson's fingers flew across her tablet, her frown deepening with each reading. "Captain," she whispered, "these energy readings are barely above minimum spaceflight requirements. This thing is running on technology that's, well, by their standards, it must be ancient." The alien spokesperson continued, their tone carrying what sounded suspiciously like amusement. "This Horizon-class exploration vessel has served many species well. We're sure humans will find it adequate for their current level of development." Miller caught the slight twitch at the corner of the spokesperson's mouth, a gesture that seemed universal among species, badly hidden contempt. He glanced at Thompson, who gave him a slight nod. She had caught it too. The ceremony concluded quickly after that. As the alien ships departed, their golden hulls once again turning into stars, humanity was left with their gift, now dubbed the Scrafy by the media. It hung in low Earth orbit like a sad reminder of humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. 3 days later, Miller found himself floating through the vessel's main corridor with Thompson. The ship's artificial gravity was working, but only at 60% capacity. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls, the sound bouncing off walls that had clearly seen better days. "They really went all out to insult us, didn't they?" Miller said, running his hand along a wall panel that looked like it might fall off at any moment. "This ship is barely holding together." Thompson didn't respond immediately. She was focused on a section of exposed circuitry, her tablet displaying readings that meant nothing to Miller, but he knew that look in her eyes. The same look she got when faced with a particularly interesting puzzle. "Maybe," she finally said, "but they made a mistake. A big one." She turned to Miller, her face lit with excitement. "They assumed we'd see this ship the same way they do, as outdated, useless technology, but they don't understand how humans think." She pulled up a holographic display of the ship's power core. "Look at this. The core design, it's not specialized like modern alien ships. It's basic, adaptable. They'd probably see that as a weakness, but for us, she grinned, it's an opportunity. This ship is like a blank canvas, Captain, and humans have always been good at turning trash into treasure. Miller studied the display, beginning to understand her excitement. How long would it take to get it fully operational? Operational. Thompson laughed. Captain, I don't want to make it operational. I want to make it extraordinary. Give me 6 months, and Earth's best engineers. We'll show the Council exactly what humans can do with their adequate gift. As they continued their inspection, Miller noticed more and more signs that Thompson was right. The ship's flaws were actually opportunities in disguise. Its simple systems could be modified, improved, rebuilt. What looked like decorative patterns on the hull could house additional systems. The outdated power core could be adapted to human technology. They found the bridge last, a spacious room with views of Earth through massive windows. Most of the consoles were dark, their systems running on minimum power. But even here, Miller could see the potential. With human innovation, this room could become something the Council never imagined. You know what they're trying to do, right? Miller said, settling into the captain's chair. It creaked ominously under his weight. They're trying to keep us contained. Give us something that looks impressive, but will hold us back technologically. Thompson nodded, already making notes on her tablet. They think they've given us a ship that will take generations to improve upon. They want us dependent on their technology, their approval. She looked up, her eyes gleaming with determination. They have no idea what they've actually given us. Miller smiled, looking out at the Earth below. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had given humans exactly what humans do best with. A challenge, an opportunity, and something to prove wrong. Get your team together, he said. I want detailed assessments of every system, every circuit, every bolt. If there's potential for improvement, I want to know about it. He stood up, his mind already racing with possibilities. They handed us what they thought was a useless vessel. Let's show them what humanity can really do. As they left the bridge, Thompson paused at a half-functioning console. With a few quick taps, she brought up the ship's original specifications. You know what the funny thing is, Captain? This ship's base design, it's actually brilliant. Simple, yes, but brilliant. It's almost as if. As if what? As if whoever designed it originally built it to be modified. Like they were waiting for someone to come along who would see it differently. She shook her head. Or maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see. Miller looked back at the bridge, at all its dormant potential. Either way, I think we're about to make some waves in the galactic community. The Council wants to see what humans can do with their gift. He smiled. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The makeshift command center buzzed with activity as engineers from every corner of Earth gathered to examine the alien vessel. Screens displayed technical readouts, while 3D holograms of ship systems floated in the air. Susan Thompson stood at the center of it all, directing the organized chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra. The power core is our priority, she announced, pointing to a holographic display of the ship's heart. It's running at 15% capacity, but that's not because it's broken. It's because we haven't figured out how to wake it up properly. Robert Wilson, a former military engineer with decades of experience in weapons systems, stepped forward. His weathered face creased in thought as he studied the core's design. Look at these connection points, he said, tracing lines in the air. They're universal adapters. This thing wasn't built to use just one type of power source. It was built to use anything. Thompson's eyes lit up. She quickly pulled up the ship's original specifications. You're right. The aliens probably saw this as primitive, but it's brilliant. We can hook up our fusion reactors, solar arrays, even the experimental quantum power cells. This ship could run on multiple power sources simultaneously. The team worked through the night, fueled by coffee and excitement. They discovered that almost every system on the ship followed the same principle. Simple, basic designs that could be modified and improved. It wasn't a limitation. It was an opportunity. A week later, Miller visited the ship to check on their progress. The corridors that had once echoed with emptiness now hummed with life. Engineers crawled through access panels, replaced old systems, and installed new ones. The air crackled with possibility. "Captain," Thompson called out, emerging from a tangle of wires. Her face was smudged with grease, but her smile was bright. "You need to see this." She led him to what had once been a bare section of hull. Now it bristled with new sensors and equipment. "Remember those decorative patterns on the outer hull? They're not decorative at all. They're prefabricated mounting points. The aliens probably forgot their original purpose, but we figured it out. We can attach almost anything to them." Wilson joined them, carrying what looked like a modified weapon system. "And that's not all," he added. "These mounting points form a grid across the entire ship. If we do this right, we could create the most advanced shield system humanity has ever designed." Miller watched as they demonstrated their discoveries. Every flaw in the ship's design had become an advantage. The outdated computer systems were being replaced with Earth's latest quantum computers. The weak engines were being modified to accept multiple types of propulsion. Even the life support systems were being upgraded to exceed anything currently in use. "How long until we can test it?" Miller asked, trying to hide his excitement. Thompson checked her tablet. 2 more weeks for the basic systems. But here's the interesting part. We're building everything to be modular. If something breaks or we develop better technology, we can swap it out in hours instead of months. This ship will never be outdated because it can always be upgraded. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The ship's transformation was remarkable. Its hull, once dull and patched, now gleamed with purpose. New systems peeked through the surface like jewels, each serving a vital function. The bridge, once dark and lifeless, now pulsed with energy. On the day of the first test flight, Miller stood on the bridge with Thompson and Wilson. The ship hummed around them, its new power core running at full capacity. Multiple energy sources worked in perfect harmony, providing more power than the original designers had ever imagined possible. "All systems are ready," Thompson reported, her fingers dancing across the new control panels. "Power output is stable at 300% of original specifications. Shield grid is online. Weapons systems are, well, let's just say we've got some surprises if we need them." Miller settled into the captain's chair, now properly reinforced and equipped with its own command interfaces. "Take us out, nice and easy. Let's see what she can do." The ship lifted smoothly from its dock, its new engines purring like a well-tuned machine. As they cleared Earth's atmosphere, Thompson began running through their test protocols. Each new system performed perfectly, exceeding even their optimistic expectations. "Preparing for full power test," Thompson announced. "All departments report ready." Miller nodded. "Do it." The ship surged forward, its hybrid power systems working together in ways the Galactic Council had never imagined. On the screens, test data scrolled past at incredible speeds. Every system was performing at levels that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. "Look at these readings," Wilson said, grinning. "The shield grid isn't just defensive. It's actually improving our engine efficiency. The whole ship is working together like a single organism." As they put the ship through its paces, Miller couldn't help but smile. The aliens had given them what they thought was an obsolete vessel, but they had fundamentally misunderstood humanity. Where they saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. Where they saw outdated technology, humans saw a foundation to build upon. "We need a new name," Miller said as they completed their final test run. "We can't keep calling it the Scraffheap anymore." Thompson looked up from her station. "I've been thinking about that. What about Phoenix? In Earth mythology, it's a bird that rises from its own ashes, transformed into something more powerful than before." Wilson nodded approvingly. "Perfect. Because that's exactly what we've done here. We've taken their cast-off gift and turned it into something they never imagined possible." As they began their return flight to Earth, Miller gazed out at the stars. The Galactic Council had tried to contain humanity's growth, to keep them dependent and subordinate. Instead, they had given humans exactly what they needed: a challenge to overcome, a puzzle to solve, and a chance to prove themselves. "You know," Thompson said quietly, "I don't think they'll be smirking the next time they see this ship." Miller smiled. "No, they won't. But that's not why we did this. We did it because this is what humans do. We take what we're given, and we make it better. We adapt, we improve, we overcome." The Phoenix streaked back toward Earth, its systems humming with power and possibility. It was no longer a cast-off gift or an insult to humanity. It was proof of what humans could achieve when given the chance. And this was just the beginning. 6 months passed like a whirlwind of innovation and discovery. The Phoenix had become Earth's greatest technical achievement, though few beyond the project team knew its true capabilities. From space, it still looked like the same old vessel the Galactic Council had given them, but beneath its skin, it was something entirely new. Thompson stood in the ship's new control center, watching as her team installed the final pieces of their most ambitious upgrade yet. The room gleamed with holographic displays and smart surfaces that responded to touch and thought. Gone were the creaking panels and flickering screens. Everything now moved with smooth precision. "Final power core integration is complete," announced one of her engineers. "All 5 power sources are running in perfect sync. We're seeing output levels that are—" He paused, double-checking his readings. 700% above original specifications. Wilson walked in, carrying his latest creation, a handheld device that looked too small to be dangerous. "Wait until you see what this beauty can do," he said, grinning. "Remember those decorative hull patterns we found? Well, I've figured out how to turn them into weapon ports. One button, and this ship can defend itself from any angle." The Phoenix had indeed become something extraordinary. Its hull now contained thousands of micro-launchers, each capable of deploying everything from defensive shields to offensive weapons. The original designers had left the mounting points, but humans had taken the concept far beyond anything they had imagined. Miller entered the control center, looking impressed with the latest changes. "How's our AI system coming along?" he asked, settling into his command chair, now a marvel of engineering itself, capable of keeping him safe even if the ship took heavy damage. Thompson pulled up a holographic display. A gentle blue light pulsed in time with her words. "Meet HFY, Adaptive Response Intelligence Assistant. She's not just a computer. She's a true AI that can learn and adapt. She's already learned to manage all ship systems more efficiently than we ever could manually." "Hello, Captain Miller." HFY's voice was calm and clear. "All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The new quantum computing cores have expanded my processing capability by 300% since last week." Miller nodded approvingly. The decision to integrate Earth's experimental AI technology had been controversial, but the results were undeniable. HFY had taken their improvements and found ways to make them work even better together. "Show me the shield system," he requested. The holographic display shifted, showing layers of protective fields surrounding the ship. What had started as a simple defense grid had evolved into something revolutionary. The shields now adapted to any threat, using the enemy's own energy to grow stronger. "The latest tests are remarkable," Thompson said, highlighting specific data points. "When we hit the shields with energy weapons, they don't just block the attack. They absorb the energy and feed it back into our power system. The harder someone hits us, the stronger we become." Wilson stepped forward, adding his own data to the display. "And that's not all. Those simple hull patterns, we've modified them to create a metamaterial surface. We can adjust the ship's radar signature at will. We can look like a small shuttle, a massive warship, or nothing at all." Outside the ship, a maintenance team was installing the final pieces of the new sensor array. The Phoenix could now see further and more clearly than any human vessel before it. But unlike the specialized systems used by the Galactic Council, these sensors could be easily upgraded or replaced as better technology became available. "Time for a full systems test," Thompson announced. The engineering team took their positions, each monitoring different aspects of the ship's performance. Miller watched as screens filled with data, showing the incredible transformation they had achieved. Aria's voice provided updates as each system came online. Primary power grid at full capacity. Secondary and tertiary systems synchronized. Quantum cores operating at optimal levels. Shield grid energized. Adaptive defense systems ready. All weapons in standby mode. Environmental systems at 100%. The ship hummed with power, but it wasn't the unstable vibration they had felt 6 months ago. Now it was a smooth, confident pulse. Like a heartbeat, every system worked in perfect harmony, each improvement building on the others to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "Take us out," Miller ordered. "Let's see what she can really do." The Phoenix lifted smoothly from its dock, its new engines barely making a sound. As they reached orbit, Thompson began running through their test protocol. But this was no simple shakedown cruise. They were going to push the ship to its absolute limits. "Engaging maximum thrust," Thompson announced. The ship surged forward, accelerating faster than anything in Earth's fleet. The stars blurred around them, but inside the ship, no one felt more than a gentle push back in their seats. Wilson monitored the tactical systems as they ran combat drills. Holographic targets appeared and vanished as the ship's weapons tracked and eliminated them with perfect precision. The shield grid sparkled as it deflected simulated attacks, each impact making it stronger. "Energy levels are actually increasing," Thompson reported with satisfaction. "The more we use the systems, the more efficiently they work together. Aria is optimizing everything in real time." They pushed the ship harder, testing every system and capability they had added. The Phoenix responded perfectly, its hybrid systems working together in ways that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. It was no longer just a ship. It was humanity's greatest achievement. As they completed their final test run, Miller stood at the center of the control room, looking at his crew with pride. "The Council thought they were giving us an obsolete relic," he said. "Instead, they gave us the foundation for something they never imagined possible." Thompson nodded, still monitoring the test data. "Every primitive feature they mocked us for has become an advantage. Their specialized systems can't adapt or improve without completely rebuilding them. Ours." She gestured at the screens showing the ship's capabilities. "We can upgrade any part of this ship in hours. We'll never fall behind because we can always move forward." The Phoenix cruised back to Earth, its systems running perfectly. From the outside, it still looked much like the gift they had received, perhaps a bit shinier, a bit more purposeful in its stance. But inside, it had become something new, something that represented the very best of human ingenuity and determination. "We should invite the Council for a demonstration," Wilson suggested with a slight smile. "Show them what humans can do with a useless vessel." Miller shook his head, though he was smiling too. "Not yet. Let them think we're still struggling with their gift. The time will come to show them what we've achieved. But for now..." He looked out at the stars, thinking of the future. "For now, let's focus on making the Phoenix even better." The ship glided into its dock, its transformed systems powering down to standby mode. But unlike 6 months ago, it wasn't going to sleep. It was merely waiting, ready to prove that humanity could turn any challenge into an opportunity, any setback into a triumph. The real test would come soon enough, and the Phoenix would be ready. The emergency signal blared through Earth's communication channels, its alien frequency catching everyone by surprise. Miller was in the middle of a routine system check when Aria's calm voice interrupted his work. "Captain, I'm detecting a distress call from the Galactic Council colony on Delta 9. They are under attack by a significant pirate fleet. Current count shows 37 hostile vessels." Miller straightened in his chair. "How far are we from their position?" We are the closest vessel capable of responding. At maximum speed, we can reach them in 17 minutes. Thompson and Wilson rushed onto the bridge, having received the same alert. Their faces showed a mix of concern and determination. This would be the Phoenix's first real test, and against overwhelming odds. "The Council's going to love this," Wilson said, taking his station at tactical. "The humans coming to save them in their obsolete gift." Miller opened a channel to Earth Command, quickly receiving authorization to respond. The Council colony's fate was more important than keeping their ship's improvements secret. "All hands to battle stations. Thompson, give me everything the engines have got. Wilson, power up all defensive systems, but keep them hidden. Let's show them what this ship can really do." The Phoenix leaped forward, its hybrid engines pushing it to speeds that would have torn apart a lesser vessel. Inside, the crew felt nothing thanks to their advanced inertial dampeners. The stars stretched into lines of light as they raced to answer the distress call. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, they could already see the battle. Pirate ships swarmed around the colony like angry wasps, their weapons tearing through the orbital defenses. 2 Council ships lay crippled nearby, their golden hulls scared and dark. "This is Captain James Miller of the Earth vessel Phoenix responding to your distress call," Miller announced on all frequencies. "We are here to help." The response was immediate and dismissive. "Earth vessel, withdraw immediately," a Council commander ordered. "Your outdated ship will be destroyed. This is not a battle for primitive vessels." Miller ignored the warning. "AI, battle analysis." The AI's response was immediate. "Pirate vessels are using mainly energy weapons and standard missiles. Their shields are basic but numerous. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical superiority. I have identified 19 different weapon configurations and have adjusted our shield harmonics accordingly. Wilson, deploy the shield grid but keep it powered down. Thompson, ready the power absorption systems. Let's show them what primitive looks like." The Phoenix dove into the battle, still appearing as the same old vessel the Council had given them. The pirates, seeing what looked like an easy target, turned their attention to the human ship. "Multiple weapons locked on us," Wilson reported calmly. "Impact in 3, 2, 1. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Phoenix from all directions. At the last possible moment, Wilson activated their defense systems. The shield grid flared to life, not just blocking the attacks but absorbing them. Each hit made their shields stronger, feeding power back into their systems. "Shield strength increasing," Thompson announced with satisfaction. "Power levels are now at 120% and rising. Their attacks are making us stronger." The Council commanders watched in stunned silence as the supposedly obsolete vessel shrugged off attacks that had crippled their own ships. But the Phoenix wasn't done showing off. "Time to return the favor," Miller ordered. "Wilson, show them our little surprises." The ship's decorative hull patterns suddenly came alive. Thousands of micro-launchers deployed, each targeting a different pirate vessel. The Phoenix erupted in a dazzling display of defensive and offensive power that left both pirates and Council forces speechless. Araya coordinated their attack perfectly, predicting enemy movements and adjusting their weapons in real time. Pirate ships found their shields failing as specialized energy pulses disrupted their systems. Others discovered their weapons being turned against them by the Phoenix's adaptive defense grid. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," Wilson reported with a grin. "They've never seen anything like this. They don't know how to counter our systems." Miller watched as the pirate fleet tried to regroup. Their traditional tactics were useless against the Phoenix's constantly adapting defenses. Each attack they launched only made the human ship stronger, its hybrid systems working together in ways they couldn't understand. "Multiple ships are powering up their jump drives," Araya reported. "They are attempting to escape." "Not today," Miller said firmly. "Thompson, activate the gravity net. Wilson, target their engines. Let's make sure these pirates don't trouble anyone else." The Phoenix's most innovative system deployed, a web of focused gravity fields that trapped the pirate ships in place. Their engines strained against the invisible force, but they couldn't break free. One by one, Wilson's precisely targeted shots disabled their power systems. In less than 30 minutes, the battle was over. The pirate fleet that had overwhelmed the Council's defenses lay dead in space, defeated by a single primitive vessel. The Phoenix hung among them, its systems humming contentedly, ready for more if needed. "Status report," Miller called out. "Shields at 200% capacity thanks to all that absorbed energy," Thompson reported. "All systems functioning perfectly. ARI has already analyzed their weapon systems and updated our defensive algorithms. We're actually stronger now than when the battle started." The Council commander's voice came over the comm system again, but this time the dismissive tone was gone. "Earth vessel. How? What did you do to that ship?" Miller smiled. "We improved it. Turns out humans are pretty good at making things better. Would you like assistance with your damaged vessels? Our engineering teams are quite experienced with repairs." The silence that followed was almost comical. Finally, the commander responded, "We would appreciate any assistance you can provide." As repair teams prepared to help the damaged Council ships, Miller looked at his crew with pride. They had done more than win a battle. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt and improve. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them the Phoenix has completed its first combat trial. All systems performed beyond expectations." He paused, looking at the defeated pirate fleet. "And maybe mention that we're going to need a bigger dock. I have a feeling we're going to be making a lot more improvements after analyzing all this combat data." The Phoenix moved gracefully among the damaged ships, its sensors already cataloging new information, its systems adapting and improving. What the Council had intended as an insult had become humanity's greatest triumph. And this was just the beginning. News of the Phoenix's victory spread through the galaxy like a wildfire. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with excited discussions as representatives from various species debated what this meant for their carefully maintained hierarchy. Humans, it seemed, had done the impossible. They had turned a technological insult into a triumph that couldn't be ignored. 3 weeks after the battle, the Phoenix approached the Council's central station. This time, there were no smirks or dismissive glances from the alien diplomats. Every sensor and scanner on the station was focused on the vessel, trying to understand how humans had achieved such a transformation. Miller stood proud on his bridge, his crew at their stations. Thompson and Wilson flanked him as they prepared to dock. The ship looked much the same as when it had first been gifted to humanity, but now it moved with undeniable purpose and power. "They've assigned us their primary docking bay," Araya announced. "Interesting. According to their protocols, that berth is reserved for their most advanced vessels." Thompson smiled at her screens. "Well, we certainly qualify for that now. Our power readings alone are probably giving their sensors fits." The Phoenix settled into the dock with perfect precision. As they prepared to meet the Council, Wilson's tactical display lit up. "Captain, you might want to see this." Every military vessel in the system just went to full alert. "They're scared of us." "Not scared," Miller corrected. "Cautious. They've just discovered that humans are far more capable than they assumed. Let them watch. They might learn something." The Council chamber was packed when they entered. Species from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this historic moment. The same silver-skinned diplomat who had presented the gift stood at the central podium, looking far less confident than before. "Humans," the diplomat began, "you have surprised us. Our analysis of your battle with the pirate fleet shows capabilities we did not think possible with such basic technology." "Basic?" Thompson stepped forward, unable to contain herself. "What you saw as basic was actually flexible, adaptable. Your specialized systems are impressive, but they can't grow or change. Ours can evolve." She activated a holographic display, showing the Phoenix's systems. "Every attack makes us stronger. Every battle teaches us something new. We took your gift and made it better not because we're more advanced, but because we think differently." The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from various worlds began shouting questions, demanding to know how humans had achieved such results. But it was an old, quiet voice from the back of the chamber that caught everyone's attention. "They did exactly what we hoped they would." The crowd parted to reveal an ancient alien, their skin wrinkled and pale. Miller recognized the species. They were nearly extinct now, but they had once been great engineers. "I was part of the team that designed that vessel," the Ancient One said, moving forward slowly. "We created it thousands of years ago, but not as the simple ship everyone assumed it to be. We designed it as a test." The chamber fell silent as the Ancient One continued. "We built it with potential hidden capabilities that would only become apparent to a species that thought creatively, that saw possibilities where others saw limitations. We launched many such ships into the galaxy, waiting for someone to understand their true nature." Thompson's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The adaptive core, the modular systems, the hull patterns, they weren't mistakes or outdated technology. They were seeds, the Ancient One finished. Seeds waiting for the right species to help them grow. Many received our ships over the millennia. All saw them as primitive, useless. But you humans, the Ancient One's eyes gleamed. You saw what we had hidden. You understood. The council chamber buzzed with this revelation. The silver-skinned diplomat looked shocked. "You mean to tell us that this was all a test? That the humans succeeded where we all failed?" "Not failed," Miller interjected. "You just saw things differently. Humans have always had to adapt, to improve, to find new ways to solve problems. When you gave us that ship, you didn't give us limitations. You gave us opportunities." Wilson stepped forward, adding his own thoughts. "Every system we added, every improvement we made, worked better than it should have. Now we know why. The ship was designed to enhance whatever was added to it, but only if those additions were made with understanding and creativity." The Ancient One nodded. "And now, as was always intended, we offer humanity our people's legacy. In the ship's database, accessible only to those who proved worthy, are the technical archives of our civilization. All our knowledge, our achievements, our discoveries, they are yours now." Thompson's tablet chimed. Araya's voice announced, "New data streams detected. Beginning integration of archived technical data." "Captain, this is incredible. The theoretical foundations alone are centuries beyond current galactic science." The council representatives whispered among themselves. Humanity hadn't just proven themselves capable. They had unlocked knowledge that had been hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in ways no one had expected. The silver-skinned diplomat cleared their throat. "In light of these developments, the Council proposes an immediate revision of Earth's status. We would be honored to learn from humanity's unique perspective." Miller smiled but shook his head. "What we prefer is genuine cooperation. We don't want to dominate or control. We want to share what we've learned, work together, help everyone advance. That's another human trait. We believe that everyone can improve, everyone can grow stronger." The Ancient One's eyes crinkled with pleasure. "And that, more than anything else, proves you were the right choice. Our technology was never meant to create a new ruling species. It was meant to find one that would help lift all others up with them." As the council session continued, Miller looked at his crew with pride. They had done more than prove humanity's worth. They had shown that the greatest strength wasn't in having the most advanced technology, but in having the vision to see possibilities where others saw limitations. "So," Wilson said quietly, "what do we do with all this new knowledge?" Thompson was already scrolling through the technical archives, her eyes bright with excitement. "We do what humans always do. We learn, we improve, and we share." And then she looked up at the gathered representatives of the galaxy's species. "Then we help everyone else do the same." The Phoenix hummed in its dock, no longer just a transformed gift, but a symbol of humanity's unique place in the galaxy. Its systems hummed quietly, already incorporating the ancient knowledge it had helped unlock. But more importantly, it stood as proof that the greatest technology wasn't the most advanced or the most specialized. It was the kind that could grow, adapt, and improve. And that was something humans understood better than anyone.
The library was Elias's temple. It wasn't the public kind, with signs pleading for silence and a suspicious clerk glaring over half-moon glasses. No, this was his private hoard, a sprawling labyrinth of shelves and dusty corridors that wound their way through the old, creaky manor he'd inherited from an aunt no one liked to talk about. Some people collected coins or stamps. Elias collected stories. His library wasn't just a place to read. It was a world unto itself, and lately, that world was misbehaving. It began innocently enough, or so Elias thought. At first, it was just small things. Books he'd swear he left on one shelf would appear on another, and dog-eared pages would straighten themselves like unruly students caught slouching. He assumed it was the drafty windows, the uneven flooring, or the sheer weight of his disorganized system of shelving. A creative chaos, he liked to call it. After all, who wouldn't misplace a novel or two in a collection spanning tens of thousands of volumes? But then came the incident. Elias had spent the better part of the evening searching for his treasured first edition of Dune. The search had taken him through the classics section, under the precariously leaning tower of sci-fi anthologies, and even into the books I swore I'd read but never did pile. When he finally found it, on the floor, no less, he picked it up, only to find it open to the middle of the book. Not a folded page, not a crease to mark where it had been. Just open. He stared at the book as if it might offer an explanation. "You've got some nerve," he muttered to the empty room. "The thing about living alone is that when weird stuff happens, there's no one else to blame. No mischievous roommates, no curious children. Just Elias, standing there, holding the open book in his hand, feeling like the world's least successful detective." He closed it with a decisive thump and set it back on the shelf, vowing to cut back on late-night snacking. But the strangeness didn't stop there. Books he hadn't touched in years began rearranging themselves. A dusty history of early civilizations somehow wound up wedged between volumes of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. A biography of Isaac Newton found its way into the section reserved for romantic nonsense, a designation Elias had scrawled on an old cardboard sign in one of his more cynical moods. It was when his copy of 1984 turned up in the middle of the children's section that Elias decided enough was enough. "All right," he announced to the library as though it were a sentient being. "This has gone beyond weird and into full-blown poltergeist territory. If you're a ghost, you've got lousy taste in practical jokes. If you're some kind of sentient fungus, I want you to know I have industrial-strength cleaner, and I'm not afraid to use it." The silence that followed was deafening, and so Elias decided to take action. Armed with a thermos of strong coffee, an old mop handle, and a flashlight that flickered ominously, he settled into the reading nook in the far corner of the library. From this vantage point, he could see most of the major sections without being spotted, though by whom or what he wasn't quite ready to admit. The hours dragged on. Midnight came and went, and the only sound was the occasional creak of the old wooden floors or the distant hoot of an owl outside. Elias began to feel foolish. Perhaps he was just imagining things. Maybe it was the drafty windows and his overactive imagination. That's when the shimmer appeared. It began as a faint distortion, like heat rising from pavement on a summer day. Elias blinked, unsure if the caffeine was playing tricks on his eyes. But the shimmer grew stronger, rippling through the air just above the poetry section. Slowly, impossibly, it coalesced into what looked like a pool of liquid gold suspended in midair. Elias's jaw dropped. Well, that's new. Before he could decide whether to run, poke it with the mop, or just stare, the pool began to stretch and widen. A faint hum filled the air, low and resonant, like the sound of a tuning fork. Then with a soft pop, a figure stepped through. She was taller than any human Elias had ever seen, her skin a soft, iridescent hue that shimmered between lavender and silver in the dim light. Her hair, or what he assumed was hair, was translucent and seemed to float around her head as though underwater. Her eyes were large and multifaceted, like an insect's, but with an unnerving warmth to them. She was dressed in flowing garments that shifted colors with her movements, and in her elongated fingers she held a slender device that pulsed with a faint blue light. Elias did the only thing he could think of. He raised the mop handle like a sword. "All right, Space Lady, explain yourself, and, put down the ray gun or mind control wand or whatever that is." The woman, or alien, or whatever she was, looked at him with an expression of mild amusement. Then she spoke, her voice melodic and calm, though tinged with what could only be described as academic curiosity. "Forgive me, is this not the place of reading?" Elias lowered the mop an inch. "The place of... This is a library, yeah, but it's my library, and last I checked, it wasn't a galactic bus stop." The alien tilted her head. "Galactic bus stop? Well, I don't know how you got here, but you're not borrowing books without a library card," Elias muttered, more to himself than to her. She took a step closer, her glowing eyes scanning the shelves. "Ah, I see. The classification system is inefficient, but the selection is impressive. May I?" Elias stared at her, uncomprehending. "May you what?" She gestured to the nearest shelf. "Partake." "What are you, some kind of intergalactic book club member?" Elias asked, still clutching the mop. The alien considered this. "In a manner of speaking, I am Calith, an Arendari anthropologist specializing in cultural artifacts. Your literature fascinates us. It is chaotic, diverse, beautiful." Elias blinked. "Did you just call Earth chaotic?" Calith nodded solemnly. "Indeed. Your organizational skills leave much to be desired." Elias lowered the mop completely. "Okay, Space Lady. You've got 2 minutes to explain yourself before I call... Well, I don't know who I'd call, but someone would probably take this seriously." Calith smiled faintly, her shimmering features catching the dim light. "I would be delighted to explain. But first, may I borrow a volume? Perhaps something... ironic." Elias groaned. Oh, this is going to be a long night. And it was. Elias had imagined many scenarios involving uninvited guests in his library. A neighborhood kid sneaking in to borrow a comic book, maybe a stray raccoon developing a taste for dusty old pages. Never in his wildest daydreams, or caffeine-fueled overthinking sessions, had he anticipated playing host to an alien anthropologist with a penchant for Earth literature. "Wait," Elias said, pointing at the alien woman, Calith she'd called herself, with a trembling finger. "Let me get this straight. You're here to... read?" Calith nodded, her expression as serene as a yoga instructor's on a Monday morning. "Precisely. Your literary works are a treasure trove of insight into the human condition. I find them irresistible." Elias blinked. "Irresistible? Books? Are you sure you're from another planet? That sounds suspiciously human. Like, you're not secretly just someone from New York with a weird skincare routine, are you?" Calith tilted her head, clearly perplexed. "New York? Is that a colony of great literary significance?" Elias sighed. "Forget it. Look, you're telling me you risked... what? Intergalactic customs violations? Space-time disturbances? Just so you could sneak into my library and raid my bookshelves?" Calith smiled faintly, her iridescent skin catching the dim light. You make it sound so reckless. My people have mastered portal technology. It's quite safe. Elias folded his arms. Safe, huh? Then why is my library looking like it's been visited by a ghost with ADHD? Caliph had the decency to look sheepish, or at least as sheepish as a 7-foot-tall shimmering alien could manage. I may have been overeager. Your system of categorization is uniquely human, linear, rigid, fascinating but not intuitive. Elias snorted. You mean chaotic? Exactly. Elias groaned and slumped into the nearest armchair. All right, fine. Let's say I believe you're not here to vaporize me or turn my books into alien fuel. What's stopping me from calling the authorities, or NASA, or whoever handles space trespassers? Caliph didn't flinch. Instead, she produced a small oval device from the folds of her flowing, color-shifting attire. The object hummed softly and projected a flickering holographic image of what looked like Elias's library. This, Caliph said, is a memory imprint device. It has cataloged your library's layout and its contents during my previous visits. Should you wish, I can erase all records and depart immediately. Elias squinted at the shimmering projection. Wait. You scanned my library? Caliph hesitated. Only for educational purposes. Educational? Elias leaned forward, incredulous. You're telling me you've been intergalactically bootlegging my book collection? Caliph blinked, her multifaceted eyes catching the faint glow of the hologram. In your terms, it might be considered borrowing. Borrowing? Elias threw up his hands. That's like saying you're borrowing the Mona Lisa by copying it with a high-tech photocopier. There's still theft involved. Caliph's expression softened, her voice dropping to a more conciliatory tone. I meant no offense, Elias. I merely sought to understand your culture better. Surely you can appreciate the pursuit of knowledge. Elias rubbed his temples. Oh, don't you start. You sound like every smug professor I had in college. The pursuit of knowledge, he mimicked in a high-pitched voice. Fine, whatever. Just promise me you're not going to use my books to brainwash your people or spark some kind of galactic war. Caliph's serene demeanor cracked slightly, her lips twitching in what could only be described as an alien version of a smirk. You think very highly of your literature if you believe it could incite a galactic war. Elias scowled. Don't underestimate the power of a well-placed Shakespeare quote, and don't think I didn't notice you dodging my question. Caliph raised her hands, well, hand-like appendages, in mock surrender. I give you my word. No brainwashing, no wars, no harm. I only wish to learn. Elias narrowed his eyes, then sighed. All right, you can stay, but there are ground rules. Caliph tilted her head, intrigued. Ground rules? Rule 1. No more rearranging my books. I've got a system. Your system appears flawed. Rule 2, Elias barreled on, ignoring her interruption. You can read whatever you want, but no stealing. That includes high-tech holographic scans. Understood, Caliph said, though the way her translucent hair shimmered suggested she found his indignation amusing. Rule 3. No portals without permission. If I catch another shimmering thing in my library, we're going to have words. Caliph nodded solemnly. As you wish. Is there a rule 4? Elias thought for a moment. Yeah. If you're going to hang around, you're going to help me clean up this mess you've made. Caliph blinked, clearly unprepared for this twist. Clean? You heard me, Elias said, crossing his arms. Dusting, organizing, the works. Consider it rent. Caliph hesitated, then inclined her head. Very well. I accept your terms. In return, I shall offer you access to knowledge from my world. Perhaps you will find it enlightening. Enlightening? Elias asked, raising an eyebrow. Lady, if it doesn't involve a cure for back pain or a way to keep coffee warm indefinitely, I'm not interested. Caliph's lips twitched again in that almost smile. You may find our knowledge more practical than you expect. As she spoke, the small device in her hand projected another hologram, this one depicting a crystalline landscape with floating cities and shimmering rivers of light. Elias stared, his irritation momentarily forgotten. "All right," he muttered. "You've got my attention. But I swear, if this ends with me being abducted or dissected, I'm haunting you." Calith's soft laugh reverberated like a musical note. "You have a peculiar sense of humor, Elias. I look forward to understanding it better." Elias groaned, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah, well, good luck with that. Even I don't understand it half the time." And so began an unlikely partnership, a weary human librarian and an alien anthropologist with a love for Earth's chaotic, brilliant, utterly baffling stories. Neither of them could have anticipated just how strange and, surprisingly, hilarious their nights together would become. For someone with intergalactic portal technology and a glow about her that wouldn't look out of place at a rave, Calith had a surprising knack for asking the kind of questions that made Elias reconsider everything he thought he knew. "Why?" she began one evening, her translucent hair floating lazily as she perched on a pile of philosophy books. "Do humans find it amusing when someone slips on a banana peel?" Elias froze mid-sip of his coffee, nearly choking on the absurdity of the question. I'm sorry, what?" Calith repeated herself, her voice calm and melodic, as if she were discussing astrophysics instead of slapstick comedy. "The peel of the banana. Your species finds its mishaps humorous. Is it symbolic? Ritualistic? Does it signify an evolutionary triumph over fruit?" Elias set his coffee down and stared at her. "I don't even know where to start with that." "Perhaps the beginning," Calith offered helpfully. He sighed, running a hand through his perpetually unkempt hair. "It's not about the banana, okay? It's about the unexpectedness. Someone slipping and falling is funny because it's absurd, but only if they're not, actually hurt." Calith's multifaceted eyes shimmered with curiosity. "So the humor lies in the defiance of expectation?" "Something like that," Elias said, leaning back in his chair. "Why? Do aliens not have comedy?" Calith paused, considering her answer. "We do, but it is often less physical. Our humor typically revolves around paradoxes and logical incongruities. For instance, one of our classic anecdotes involves a mathematically impossible equation that still manages to solve itself." Elias stared at her. "That sounds like the worst stand-up routine I've ever heard." Calith tilted her head. "You would not find it amusing?" "I'd probably need a calculator just to get the punchline," Elias muttered, shaking his head. Their banter was becoming a nightly ritual. After their rocky introduction, Calith had proven to be more guest than intruder, and Elias had grudgingly accepted her presence as part of his increasingly bizarre routine. She was endlessly fascinated by humanity's quirks, and Elias had become her unofficial tour guide to all things earthly, though he often felt woefully unqualified for the job. That night, Calith had her sights set on the humor section of the library. She thumbed, or whatever the alien equivalent of thumbed was, through books on jokes, comic strips, and even a dusty old stand-up comedy manual Elias didn't remember owning. "These are peculiar," Calith said, holding up a compilation of knock-knock jokes. "Who is at the door, and why must they always announce themselves?" "It's not literal," Elias explained, pinching the bridge of his nose. "It's just a format for jokes. You're not supposed to think too hard about it." Calith frowned. At least Elias thought it was a frown. Her expressions were still hard to read. And this one, knock knock. "Who's there?" "Orange." "Orange who?" "Orange, you glad I didn't say banana?" She looked up, baffled. "I fail to see the humor in this." Elias chuckled despite himself. "Yeah, that one's terrible. Even humans don't like it." The room fell quiet for a moment, save for the soft rustle of pages as Calith flipped through another book. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Why do humans engage in fiction at all?" The question caught Elias off guard. "What do you mean?" Calith set the book down, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Fiction is not real. It serves no immediate survival purpose. Why expend so much energy creating and consuming it? Elias leaned back, considering his answer. Because sometimes reality isn't enough. Fiction lets us explore ideas, escape our problems, or just see the world through someone else's eyes. It's not about survival. It's about living. Kalith seemed to process this, her translucent hair shimmering faintly. That is remarkable. On my world, fiction is rare. Stories are recorded strictly as historical accounts or educational tools. The idea of creating narratives purely for imagination's sake is extraordinary. Well, Elias said, gesturing around the library, you're standing in a monument to humanity's love for making stuff up. We've got everything from ancient myths to vampire romance novels. Take your pick. Kalith's gaze swept the shelves, her expression thoughtful. And yet even within fiction there is much truth. These works reveal your fears, hopes, and dreams. They are a window into your very essence. Elias snorted. If by essence you mean our weird obsession with dystopias and love triangles, then sure. Kalith gave him that almost smile again. Perhaps I shall write my own account of this place. A fiction inspired by truth. I could title it The Irritable Librarian and the Alien Anthropologist. Elias groaned. Great. Just make sure you spell my name right when you publish it in whatever interstellar journal you guys have. Kalith chuckled softly, a sound like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze. You are most amusing, Elias. Their odd camaraderie was growing, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Kalith's visits than idle curiosity. For one thing, she seemed increasingly interested in the mechanics of human storytelling. Not just the content, but the structure, the language, the emotional resonance. One night, as she examined a particularly battered copy of The Time Machine, Elias decided to press her. So, what's the real reason you're here, Kalith? You're not just some book nerd with a fancy portal gun, are you? Kalith glanced up, her multifaceted eyes shimmering. My purpose is exactly as I have stated. I study cultures through their literature. Yeah, but why Earth? Why me? Elias leaned forward, gesturing around the room. There are plenty of other places with libraries, probably cleaner ones too. Kalith hesitated, her serene mask slipping just enough for Elias to notice. Earth is unique. Your literature is unlike anything else in the galaxy. It is fragmented yet cohesive, chaotic yet meaningful. As for you, you are simply in the right place at the right time. Elias narrowed his eyes. That sounds suspiciously convenient. Kalith's expression softened. Perhaps. Or perhaps it is fate. Fate, huh? Elias rubbed his chin. Well, if fate involves intergalactic trespassing and knocking over my book piles, I'm not impressed. Kalith smiled faintly. You have a peculiar way of welcoming guests. And you have a peculiar way of visiting libraries, Elias shot back. Do me a favor, though. If you're going to stick around, at least help me figure out where I left my other flashlight. This place is a maze after dark. Kalith nodded solemnly. I shall assist. And perhaps in return, you will explain why humans are so preoccupied with banana peels. Elias groaned, shaking his head. You're not going to let that go, are you? Kalith's melodic laugh echoed through the library, and for the first time in years, Elias felt like he wasn't quite so alone. The library had always been Elias's sanctuary, a fortress of solitude built from musty paperbacks and cracked leather-bound tomes. But now, it was beginning to feel like a cross between a sitcom set and a science lab. Kalith's visits were no longer the quiet, contemplative affairs he'd come to expect. For one thing, she'd started bringing gadgets. What is that? Elias asked, staring warily at the oval silver device Kalith had placed on his desk. It whirred faintly, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Kalith looked up from a pile of encyclopedias she was skimming at an alarming speed. This is an analytical resonance scanner. It measures vibrational frequencies to identify patterns in complex systems. Elias blinked. So, What does it do? Kalith tilted her head, clearly puzzled. I just explained that. Yeah, but what does that mean? Is it going to explode? Should I be worried? Kalith's laugh was a soft, musical sound that made Elias feel simultaneously reassured and vaguely insulted. It is perfectly safe. I am using it to study the structural composition of your books. Elias folded his arms, giving the device a skeptical look. You need alien tech to study books? They're made of paper, Kalith. Trees. It's not rocket science. Kalith's luminous eyes gleamed. Ah, but it is more than the materials that interest me. The ink, the binding, even the order in which words are arranged. All of it holds meaning. Take this, for example. She held up a copy of Moby Dick. Why do humans create symbols such as a white whale to represent their struggles? Why not simply write about the struggle itself? Elias snorted. Because that would be boring. Nobody wants to read a book called Captain Ahab's Diary of Obsession and Poor Life Choices. Kalith's lips twitched, her almost smile making an appearance. Your literature is uniquely layered. Every word carries multiple meanings. It is fascinating. Elias rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress a small grin. He had to admit, it was nice to have someone, even if that someone was an alien, who appreciated the quirks of human storytelling. All right, he said, gesturing to the whirring gadget. Just don't let that thing disintegrate any of my books. Some of these are first editions. Kalith nodded solemnly. Your collection is safe. I give you my word. Despite her reassurances, Elias kept a wary eye on the device as he went about his evening routine. He was halfway through organizing a shelf of old science fiction novels when Kalith spoke again. Elias, she said, her tone contemplative. I have noticed a recurring theme in your species' fiction, the fear of the unknown. Why are humans so afraid of what they do not understand? Elias paused, considering the question. Because the unknown is, well, unknown. It's unpredictable, dangerous. It's in our DNA to be cautious about things we can't explain. Keeps us alive. Kalith nodded slowly, as if filing the information away. And yet, you also seek the unknown. Your explorers venture into space. Your scientists probe the mysteries of existence. It seems paradoxical. Elias chuckled. Yeah, that's humans for you. We're a walking contradiction. Curious enough to poke the bear, but smart enough to keep an escape route. Kalith tilted her head. Poke the bear? It's an expression, Elias said, waving a hand. It means to mess with something you probably shouldn't. Kalith's eyes glimmered with amusement. A fitting analogy. Tell me, have you ever poked a bear? Elias gave her a flat look. Do I look like someone who goes around poking bears? Kalith seemed to consider this number, but I can imagine it would make for an amusing anecdote. Yeah, hilarious, Elias muttered, turning back to the bookshelf. The evening continued in much the same way, with Kalith alternating between profound questions and unintentionally funny observations. At one point, she asked why humans wore shoes indoors. Are you afraid of your floors attacking you? And Elias spent 15 minutes trying and failing to explain the concept of house slippers. By the time they reached the topic of coffee, Elias was ready to call it a night, but Kalith was relentless. This beverage, she said, holding up his half-empty mug, is a stimulant, correct? Yep, Elias said, sipping the last dregs. Keeps me awake. Why? You don't have coffee on your planet? Kalith shook her head. We have substances that enhance cognitive function, but none are consumed recreationally. This seems inefficient. Elias stared at her. Inefficient? Lady, coffee is the only reason half of humanity hasn't collectively given up. It's not just a drink, it's a survival tool. Kalith raised a translucent eyebrow. Fascinating. May I try some? Elias hesitated. I'm not sure that's a good idea. What if your alien biology can't handle it? I don't want to be responsible for giving you a caffeine overdose or something. Calith's expression turned faintly amused. Elias, I traverse dimensions and study entire civilizations. I believe I can handle a beverage. Against his better judgment, Elias poured her a small cup. Calith examined it with scientific precision, sniffing the liquid before taking a cautious sip. For a moment, she was silent. Then her eyes widened, and her iridescent skin seemed to glow even brighter. "This is extraordinary," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Elias smirked. "Told you." Calith took another sip, her serene demeanor cracking just slightly. "I feel energized. Is this why humans are so productive?" Elias laughed. "Productive? Hardly. Coffee doesn't make us productive. It just makes us slightly less miserable about having to be productive." Calith seemed to process this, then gave him one of her rare, full smiles. "Your species is truly remarkable." "Glad you think so," Elias said, leaning back in his chair. "Now, if you're done marveling at the wonders of caffeine, can we call it a night? Some of us need sleep." Calith nodded, though her gaze lingered on the coffee mug as if she were considering a second cup. "Very well. But tomorrow, I wish to discuss your concept of time travel. It seems improbable." Elias groaned. "Great. Can't wait." As he headed upstairs to his bedroom, he couldn't help but smile. For all her questions and quirks, Calith was beginning to feel less like an intergalactic intruder and more like a bizarre but oddly endearing friend. Little did he know, their discussions were about to take a turn that would change everything. Elias had a rule. Well, it wasn't so much a rule as an unspoken agreement with himself. Don't mess with things you don't understand. That rule had served him well in life. It kept him from tinkering with his aging water heater, from joining his high school's experimental robotics club, and, most recently, from pressing any of the glowing alien buttons on Calith's increasingly bizarre gadgets. But Calith, it seemed, did not operate under the same guiding principle. "What are you doing?" Elias asked warily as he found her crouched in the darkest corner of the library. She was fiddling with yet another alien device, this one shaped like a crystalline cube that hummed faintly and cast shifting patterns of light onto the surrounding bookshelves. "Investigating," Calith said without looking up. "Investigating what?" Elias folded his arms, his curiosity battling with his better judgment. Calith straightened, holding the cube aloft like some kind of futuristic lantern. "There is an anomaly here, a spatial distortion. I detected it last night while examining your library's dimensional frequencies." Elias blinked. "You detected a what?" Calith turned to face him, her iridescent eyes glinting with excitement. "A disturbance in the fabric of space. It is faint, but it appears to originate from within this library." Elias stared at her, then at the glowing cube, then back at her. "Okay, two things. First, I didn't know my library had dimensional frequencies. Second, is this going to blow up? Because I really don't want to explain to my landlord why there's a black hole where my living room used to be." Calith's expression softened into what Elias had come to recognize as her version of a reassuring smile. "It is unlikely to explode. The anomaly appears stable, though its nature is puzzling." "Great. Puzzling anomalies. Just what my week was missing." Despite his protests, Elias couldn't help but be intrigued. He watched as Calith ran the cube over the bookshelves, the device emitting a series of soft chimes as it passed certain sections. "What exactly are you looking for?" he asked. "Evidence," Calith said simply. "Calith. Evidence of what?" Calith hesitated, her gaze flickering over the shelves. "I am not yet certain, but anomalies of this nature are rare. They often indicate the presence of something extraordinary." Elias groaned. "Extraordinary?" "Calith, I've already got an alien visitor who drinks my coffee and critiques my knock-knock jokes. How much more extraordinary can things get?" Calith didn't answer. Instead, she crouched again, peering closely at a particular section of the wall. After a moment, She pressed her hand to it, and the air around her seemed to shimmer. Calith, Elias said, his voice tinged with alarm. What are you doing? Calith glanced over her shoulder. The distortion is strongest here. I believe there may be a concealed structure behind this wall. Elias took a step back. A concealed structure? Like a secret room? Possibly, Calith said, her tone calm but focused. Okay, hold on, Elias said, holding up his hands. Let's think this through. What if it's, I don't know, something dangerous, or cursed, or full of spiders? Calith tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Your imagination is impressive. I'm serious, Elias insisted. You don't just go poking around in hidden rooms. That's how horror movies start. Calith regarded him for a moment, then turned back to the wall. Do not worry, Elias. I will proceed with caution. Yeah, because that makes me feel so much better, Elias muttered. But he didn't stop her. With a graceful motion, Calith waved her hand over the wall. The crystalline cube emitted a low hum, and the wall began to ripple like water. Elias watched, wide-eyed, as a section of the bookshelf seemed to dissolve, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. Well, that's not creepy at all, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Calith stepped into the passageway without hesitation, the cube's glow casting strange shadows on the walls. Wait, Elias called after her. What if there's a trap, or a— Trap detected, Calith said calmly, cutting him off. Elias froze. Wait, seriously? Calith nodded, pointing to a faintly glowing line etched into the floor. A pressure-sensitive mechanism. Primitive, but effective. Primitive? Elias echoed. Calith, this is a library, not some Indiana Jones treasure vault. Calith gave him a faint smile. Your indignation is noted. However, the presence of such mechanisms suggests that this space was intentionally concealed. Elias groaned, running a hand through his hair. Great. Secret passages and booby traps. This is officially the weirdest day of my life. Calith knelt beside the trap, her movements precise as she deactivated it with a small cylindrical tool. There, it is safe now. Safe, Elias muttered, following her reluctantly. You know, I used to think the weirdest thing I'd find in this library was that one romance novel about sentient plants. But no. Apparently I've got secret passages and dimensional anomalies to deal with. Calith chuckled softly, her voice echoing in the confined space. You adapt quickly, Elias. It is an admirable trait. Yeah, well, I'd prefer not to have to adapt to interdimensional weirdness, thanks. The passageway led to a small circular room. In the center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a strange spherical object. It shimmered with a faint, otherworldly light, its surface covered in intricate, shifting patterns. Calith approached it cautiously, her expression unreadable. What is it? Elias asked, his voice hushed. Calith studied the sphere for a moment before replying. A data core. It contains information, though its origin is unfamiliar. Unfamiliar? Elias repeated. You're saying even you don't know where it's from? Calith nodded. This technology does not match any known civilization. It is anomalous. Elias stared at the sphere, a mix of awe and apprehension swirling in his chest. Okay, so, what do we do with it? Calith turned to him, her luminous eyes meeting his. We learn from it. Elias sighed, rubbing his temples. Of course we do. Because why would we just leave it alone like sane people? Calith smiled faintly. Your sarcasm is noted, Elias, but this discovery is significant. It could hold answers to questions we have not yet thought to ask. Yeah, or it could hold the alien equivalent of a cursed email chain, Elias muttered. Calith didn't reply. She was already examining the data core, her fingers moving gracefully over its surface as she activated it. The room filled with a soft hum, and the sphere began to emit holographic images, vast star maps, alien symbols, and glimpses of unfamiliar landscapes. Elias watched in stunned silence. For once, he had no sarcastic quip. Whatever this thing was, it was far beyond anything he could have imagined. Elias had always thought of himself as an ordinary guy, a bit of a bookworm, maybe a touch reclusive, but thoroughly unremarkable in the grand scheme of things. Standing now in the hidden room beneath his library, staring at a glowing alien sphere that projected holographic constellations and cryptic symbols onto the walls, he was starting to rethink his life choices. "Kaleith," he said, his voice trembling just slightly, "please tell me this isn't the kind of thing that gets people abducted in movies." Kaleith, still focused on the shimmering data core, didn't look up. "This device does not appear hostile, Elias. Its purpose is informational, not destructive." "Yeah, well, forgive me if I'm not comforted by the word appear," Elias muttered. Kaleith glanced at him, her expression a blend of amusement and mild exasperation. "Your caution is commendable, if a bit excessive." "Excessive?" Elias gestured at the swirling holograms. "Kaleith, this thing looks like it could hack reality itself. What if it's some kind of alien Pandora's box?" Kaleith tilted her head, considering. "Pandora's box is a metaphorical construct, yes? From your mythology? This device does not match that description." Elias threw his hands up. "Fine. Forget the box. Let's just assume this sphere thing has answers to questions we haven't asked. What are we supposed to do with it?" Kaleith's gaze turned thoughtful. "We observe, analyze, and learn. This is a rare opportunity, Elias. Devices such as this are seldom encountered." Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. "All right, Miss Curiosity. But if this thing starts talking or glowing ominously, I'm out." Kaleith allowed herself a small smile. "Duly noted." She reached out and touched the data core again. This time, the swirling hologram shifted, aligning into what looked like a map. It displayed a series of celestial coordinates, the points glowing softly against the dark backdrop of space. "Coordinates," Kaleith murmured, her tone tinged with wonder. "To where?" Elias asked, stepping closer despite himself. Kaleith traced one of the glowing points with her finger. "I am not certain. This map does not correspond to any known stellar cartography. It may be a chart of an uncharted region of the universe." "Uncharted," Elias repeated, staring at the glowing points. "You mean there are places even you aliens haven't mapped out yet?" Kaleith nodded. "The universe is vast, Elias. Even the most advanced civilizations cannot explore every corner. This map may lead to a location of great significance, or perhaps to something entirely mundane." "Something mundane?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "Like what? An intergalactic Starbucks?" Kaleith chuckled softly, the sound catching Elias off guard. "Unlikely, but the possibilities are endless." Elias shook his head, muttering, "Endless possibilities sound great until they end with us getting vaporized by some ancient alien security system." Kaleith ignored his grumbling, her attention focused entirely on the map. After a moment, she gestured for Elias to step closer. "Look here," she said, pointing to a cluster of symbols near the map's edge. "These markings resemble a language, though it is not one I recognize." Elias squinted at the symbols. They were intricate and geometric, almost like a cross between ancient runes and modern circuit diagrams. "Well, I don't recognize them either," he said, "and I barely passed my high school Spanish class, so don't expect me to translate." Kaleith gave him an amused glance. Language often reveals much about a culture. These symbols suggest a highly advanced civilization, one with a deep understanding of mathematics and physics. Elias sighed. "Fantastic. So they were smart enough to build this thing but didn't think to leave a user manual in plain English?" Kaleith's lips twitched. "If only all advanced civilizations shared your practical sensibilities." "Hey, I'm just saying," Elias muttered. They studied the map in silence for a while, the room filled with the soft hum of the data core. As Elias watched the holograms, A strange thought occurred to him. "Calith," he said hesitantly, "why do you think this thing is here? I mean, in my library of all places? This doesn't exactly scream alien artifact storage facility." Calith's expression turned thoughtful. It is possible that this device was hidden here intentionally. Libraries are places of knowledge and preservation, are they not? Perhaps whoever placed it here sought to ensure it would be discovered by someone who values learning. Elias blinked. "So, what, you're saying I was chosen?" Calith tilted her head. "Not necessarily, but your curiosity and open-mindedness have led you here. That is significant." Elias snorted. "Great. So I'm the lucky winner of an intergalactic treasure hunt. What's the grand prize? A one-way ticket to the middle of nowhere?" Calith didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, more serious. "The true prize is knowledge, Elias, and the journey to acquire it." Elias sighed again, rubbing the back of his neck. "You make it sound so noble. But you're forgetting one thing. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some brave adventurer or a genius scientist. I'm just me." Calith stepped closer, her luminous eyes meeting his. "And yet, here you are. That is enough." For once, Elias didn't have a sarcastic retort. The moment was interrupted by a sudden change in the data core's hum. The holograms flickered, and a new image appeared, a single glowing symbol surrounded by concentric circles. "What's that?" Elias asked, frowning. Calith's brow furrowed. "A signal. The device is transmitting." "Transmitting?" Elias said, his voice rising slightly. "To who?" Calith didn't answer. Her fingers moved quickly over the data core, but whatever she was trying to do, it wasn't working. The hum grew louder, the symbol pulsing with light. "Calith," Elias said, taking a step back, "please tell me this isn't the part where everything explodes." Calith's expression was calm, but her movements were urgent. "The device appears to be responding to an external input. It may be attempting to establish a connection." "A connection?" Elias echoed. "With what?" Before Calith could answer, the sphere emitted a low, resonant tone. The walls of the room seemed to ripple, and for a brief moment, Elias thought he saw a flicker of something, a shape, a shadow, on the edge of his vision. "What the—" The light from the data core dimmed, and the hum subsided. The room was silent once more. "What just happened?" Elias demanded, his voice shaking slightly. Calith straightened, her gaze thoughtful. "The device has sent its signal. To whom or what, I cannot say, but it is likely we will receive a response." Elias stared at her, his heart pounding. "You're telling me we just rang the doorbell of some unknown alien civilization?" Calith's lips quirked in a faint smile. "In a manner of speaking, yes." Elias groaned, dragging a hand down his face. "Fantastic. Just fantastic. Next time remind me not to get involved with glowing alien artifacts." Calith chuckled softly. "You would not be able to resist." Elias sighed. "You're probably right." Despite his frustration, he couldn't shake the feeling that their discovery was only the beginning. Something was coming, something far beyond the confines of his library, and whether he liked it or not, he was along for the ride. Elias hadn't slept much since the data core's signal. Not that he was particularly prone to peaceful nights before this, what with an alien in his library and interdimensional anomalies popping up like weeds. But knowing they'd essentially shouted, "Hey, we're here," into the cosmic void added a new layer of insomnia. Calith, of course, seemed unbothered. She was methodical, calm, and curious as always. If she was concerned about who, or what, might respond to the data core's signal, she didn't show it. "You don't think they're going to show up with, I don't know, laser cannons or something, right?" Elias asked, as he paced the library for the third time that morning. Calith, seated cross-legged near the data core, didn't look up. "Highly unlikely. The signal contained no hostile intent." "Yeah, well, neither does a doorbell. But that doesn't mean the person ringing it isn't selling something I don't want, Elias muttered. Kayleith glanced at him, her expression halfway between bemusement and patience. Your ability to envision worst-case scenarios is impressive, Elias. Have you considered a career as a doom prophet? I'll add it to the list, Elias shot back. Before Kayleith could reply, a soft chime echoed through the room. Both of them froze. The data core lit up, its intricate patterns glowing with renewed intensity. A shimmering portal began to form above it, swirling with colors that Elias couldn't quite name. Is that? Yes, Kayleith said, rising gracefully to her feet. The portal stabilized, revealing a figure on the other side. They were tall and humanoid, their forms shimmering as though made of living light. Their voice, when it came, was resonant and melodic, like a choir speaking in unison. We have received your signal. Elias's mouth went dry. Hi? The figure's luminous gaze shifted to him. You are the guardian of this place? Guardian? Elias said, blinking. Oh, no. I'm just the guy who owns the library. She's the one who opened your sphere thing. He gestured at Kayleith. Kayleith stepped forward, her tone respectful but curious. Your technology is extraordinary. May I ask who you are? The figure's light flickered, almost like laughter. We are the archivists, custodians of knowledge. This device you have discovered is a fragment of our collection, entrusted to the cosmos. Entrusted? Elias repeated. You just left it lying around in someone's library? The archivist tilted their head, their form shimmering with what Elias guessed was amusement. It was placed here intentionally, in a nexus of curiosity and learning. It appears to have fulfilled its purpose. Yeah, well, I'd have appreciated a note or something, Elias grumbled. Kayleith, ignoring him, continued. The data core contains a map. Do these coordinates lead to your home? The archivist's light dimmed slightly. Number. They lead to a repository, a place where our collected knowledge is safeguarded. Few are given the opportunity to access it. Wait, Elias said, holding up a hand. You're saying this is like some cosmic library card? The archivist's form flickered again, their tone light. An apt analogy. Kayleith's eyes brightened. Will you permit us to visit this repository? There was a long pause. The archivist's form pulsed with faint light as though considering. You have demonstrated the qualities we value: curiosity, respect, and a desire for understanding, the archivist said at last. You may enter the repository if you choose, but be warned, the knowledge within is vast and not without risk. It will change you. Change us how? Elias asked warily. Knowledge is never static, the archivist replied. It shapes those who seek it, as surely as a river carves a canyon. Elias glanced at Kayleith. She looked positively gleeful at the prospect. He, on the other hand, wasn't so sure he wanted his proverbial canyon carved any further. What happens if we, don't go? He asked. The archivist's gaze turned toward him, their tone gentle. That is your choice. The repository will remain, as it always has, waiting for those who are ready. Elias swallowed. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the crossroads. Kayleith turned to him, her expression softening. Elias, you do not have to come. Your life here is valuable. You have already taken great steps into the unknown. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, but you're going, right? Kayleith nodded. I must. The opportunity is too significant to ignore. Elias let out a shaky laugh. Figures. You're the brave explorer, and I'm the guy who gets queasy on roller coasters. Kayleith smiled. You are also the one who kept watch, who opened your door to the unknown, and who faced each challenge with humor and heart. That, too, is bravery. Elias stared at her, stunned into silence. Finally, he exhaled. All right, fine. Let's go see your big cosmic library. But if this thing turns out to be some galactic timeshare scam, I'm blaming you. Calith's laughter was soft and melodic. "Your trust is appreciated, Elias." The archivist extended a hand toward them. "Then step forward and let the journey continue." Together, Elias and Calith entered the portal. The repository was beyond anything Elias could have imagined. It wasn't a single place, but a boundless expanse of shifting realities. Books, scrolls, and holographic displays floated in midair, each containing knowledge from civilizations across the universe. Elias couldn't help but laugh in amazement. "Okay, this is worth it, even if I end up with space allergies." Calith smiled at his wonder. "You see, every step into the unknown brings its own rewards." Back in his library, his real library, Elias sat alone, the morning light streaming through the windows. Calith had gone, her mission calling her back to her people, but the experience they'd shared lingered in the room like a faint, warm echo. He picked up a book from his desk, an old favorite, and smiled. His library might not be infinite or filled with holographic star maps, but it was his. And somewhere out there, in the vastness of space, he knew Calith was reading, exploring, and maybe even laughing at one of his terrible jokes. As he opened the book, a faint shimmer caught his eye, a tiny glowing bookmark tucked between the pages, a gift from an alien friend. Elias grinned. "Well, here's to the next chapter."